At my husband's funeral, my son was handed a yacht, a penthouse, and a $27 million company, while I received a wrinkled envelope that drew laughter from every corner of the room. My fingers trembled only for a moment before I lifted my chin and opened it. Inside lay a single, plane ticket to Rome, and without hesitation, I booked my passage. That small slip of paper was not an insult. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The drizzle hung in the Charleston air, soft and gray, as I pushed open the heavy brass handles of the Riverfront Country Club. Inside, oak-paneled walls and the faint smell of lilies pressed against me, as if the room itself carried judgment. Suits in shades of navy and black filled the boardroom, heads bent close together, murmurs drifting like smoke. Someone brushed past me with a too-bright smile. "You holding up okay, ma'am?" The words dripped with syrup, but the tilt of his head made it clear. He didn't expect me to answer. I scanned the room. Who sat where? Who avoided my eyes? Who kept glancing at the polished tray of pens as though they might leap into their hands? My late husband's world had always been filled with symbols of power, and this place displayed them with pride. I told myself, I buried a man, not my judgment. My feet felt steady on the carpet, though the undercurrent was already clear. I was being measured, tested, and quietly dismissed. "Take your time," someone murmured as I lowered myself into a chair. What they really meant was hurry up. I let the words drift by, held my breath for a moment, and gave nothing back. Alton Greaves, the family lawyer, opened a leather folder with slow precision. His glasses slid down his nose as he spoke in a courthouse cadence, each word heavy with rehearsal. "The yacht," he announced, letting the syllables stretch. "The penthouse, and the company valued at $27 million. His eyes flicked toward my son, Dorian, the heir apparent in their script. I saw the choreography unfold, pens nudged toward him. A chair subtly shifted so Isolde Mar could lean closer to his arm. Whispers floated. "Well, would you look at that? And guess that's how the cookie crumbles." Isolde's smirk was quick, her hand resting on Dorian's sleeve as if to claim not just him, but the room's allegiance. My chest tightened, not from surprise, but from the clear theater of it all. This wasn't grief, it was a coronation, and Alton played MC. Then the assistant appeared with a small, wrinkled envelope. My name was scrawled in dull ink across its face, the kind of thing you'd expect to find in a grocery sack, not in a reading of legacies. Alton barely glanced at it before passing it over. "For Mrs. Hanny," he said. The words thin as paper. The contrast was engineered, lists of assets gleaming for Dorian, and for me, a scrap of nothing. A ripple of laughter slid through the room, not loud but real, a cough disguised as a chuckle, a muttered "bless her heart." The sting was sharp, a public humiliation disguised as courtesy. I pinched the flap open with careful fingers, refusing to let them see me flinch. Inside was a single, plane ticket to Rome. For a beat, silence hung heavy, until someone snickered just loud enough to shatter it. "Guess he wanted you to have memories?" another voice said, soft but cutting. I kept my eyes dry, my spine straight. I would not give them tears. Alton cleared his throat, pressing forward. "To be clear, these are Mr. Creary's express wishes." He slid the envelope back toward me as though it were a claim stub at a coat check counter. He read Dorian's inheritance in full, but skimmed mine, letting it fall away like an afterthought. Dorian signed the papers with a flourish. Isolde raised her phone. "Filming for records." "Just procedural," Alton murmured. "No need to overthink it." I filed his tone in my mind like evidence. The timbre, the pace, the omissions. Silence, they thought, meant surrender. They had no idea silence was my weapon. I smoothed the crease of the ticket, slid it into my jacket pocket, and stood without scraping my chair. Eyes darted, avoiding mine. A smirk lingered at the edge of the table. I straightened my jacket, exhaled, and remembered the firmness of Harlan's handshake when he closed a deal. "We'll see," I whispered under my breath. They heard nothing, but I heard the crackle of the envelope against my palm, steady as a metronome, reminding me restraint was its own kind of power. Cool air met me in the corridor, carrying the smell of the river. I unfolded the ticket, the date clear beneath my fingers. Behind me, laughter echoed faintly. I looked back once, not at them but at the room that had let them shrink me. You wanted me to follow. Harlan, I whispered. I will. By the time their voices faded, I had already booked Rome. The oak-paneled boardroom emptied into the lounge, where soft jazz curled from hidden speakers and oyster platters crowded the tables. A French door cracked just enough to let the briny air from the river slip through. Folks loosened ties, women adjusted pearls, and grief's public mask gave way to networking chatter. A server offered me coffee, and I said, "Black, no sugar." I wanted them to see I was alert, not weary. My eyes moved across the room. Dorian planted at the center banquette. Isolde perched on the armrest like she was christening a throne. Alton lingered near the marble bar, half smiling like he'd orchestrated the whole scene. Someone leaned in with that southern drawl. "Y'all holding up?" And another with the sting of pity. "Bless your heart." I smiled without answering, refusing to let them box me in as fragile. Dorian cracked a joke about paperwork fatigue, drawing polite chuckles. Isolde tapped his cufflink like she was polishing him for display. "He's a natural," she purred. Alton chimed in with the lawyer's assurance. "There's a learning curve, but nothing he can't handle." A pen clicked, sharp as a gavel, at the bar. Someone muttered about the penthouse needing a concierge and the marina wanting proof of insurance. Wealth turned into errands. A cousin slid up with syrup in her tone. "You doing all right, Miss Corliss?" I tucked the Rome ticket deeper into my purse. My knees reminded me of my years. So I shifted near a window, giving myself both circulation and a vantage point. Then came the clink of glass. Dorian raised it high. To Dad's vision, his yacht, his penthouse, his company. "We'll carry it forward." Isolde lifted her phone to record, whispering, "For the record," someone called out, "to the new king," and another added, "and his queen." The laughter that followed was light but cut sharp. A voice from the back, sly and careless. "Old lady got a plane ticket to Rome? That's a choice." The sting was real, but I steadied my face. "Drink up, children, wham," I said calmly. "Tomorrow comes quick." My tone held both blessing and warning. Their giggles didn't last long. I took a chair with my back to the wall, scanning exits, bar, and Alton's little circle. My phone sat in my lap. I tapped notes for myself, marking who toasted, who recorded, who named what. That was not the work of a victim, but of someone setting a ledger. A man nudged me. "You must be proud," I answered. "Pride is for finished work. This ain't finished." My mother's voice echoed in my head. "You teach people how to treat you." A ripple of small tells threaded through the room. Dorian ducked aside for a call, lowering his tone. "Yes, I'll send the binder Monday." Isolde leaned into a cousin, half laughing. "Foreclosure notices are public." "Right, just kidding." I tucked the word foreclosure into my mind like a card in a deck. At the bar, a card machine beeped. Isolde's smile snapped. "Run it again." The bartender glanced at me, embarrassed. Alton murmured about rate resets like they were golf scores. I told myself, I don't trade in rumors. I wait for paper. That was when Ephraim Dodd approached, steady as an old oak. His voice rasped, seasoned by pews and porches. "Child, don't let the noise set your clock." He leaned closer, lowering his words. "He prepared something. Your husband wasn't sloppy. He timed things." He tapped his pocket, a corner of Harlan's stationery peeking out. His eyes met mine. "Keep your powder dry. Measure twice." He squeezed my hand. "When the time comes, follow the paper. Not the crowd." I held his gaze. No tears, just a nod. I slipped out before the crowd thinned. In the cloakroom, I checked my passport, sorted my pills into their organizer, tucked a spare pair of glasses beside my charger. I scheduled a ride for dawn, left a voicemail with my neighbor about the plants. A sticky note in my pocket listed mail hold, thermostat, autopay. Before leaving, I sent Dorian one text. "Traveling a few days. Handle yourself." Plain words, no invitation for reply. At the valet, Isolde swanned past. TSA can be a lot. Sweetheart, I replied evenly. Save your concern for the bank. Dorian's voice followed. If you need anything, I cut him soft. I'll ask the right people. The river air was sharper now. I zipped my coat, climbed into the waiting sedan, and let the door close on their noise. You built me to stand. Harlan, I whispered. I'm standing. By dawn, Charleston International would echo with my boarding call. By the time the rideshare left me at Charleston International, the sky was still black. The kind of cold dawn that seeps through a coat. I had one small carry-on and my purse. Just as I planned, shoes off, belt in the tray, I shuffled through TSA with the rhythm of someone who has traveled before. The agent glanced at me. Morning, ma'am. Then asked about my liquids. I smiled. All under 3 ounces. No, compression socks squeezed my calves, reminding me why I chose an aisle seat. Knees don't forgive long flights. At the gate, I ordered black coffee and tucked my passport beside the Rome ticket. My mantra stayed steady. Paper over noise. Gate B signs glowed on time, and I knew I'd keep this flight moving. Same as my resolve. The jetway hummed as I stepped down, bag rolling behind me. Overhead bins filled quick. A man spread his elbows wide, and I gently reclaimed my space without apology. Devices to airplane mode, the attendant called, her voice practiced. I set my phone to do not disturb, sent one last note to my neighbor about the plants, then tucked it away. I jotted the pushback time and tail number into my phone. Documentation was habit now. Outside, the marshes slipped from view, gray fingers reaching toward the sea. Grief didn't pull at me. It rose and receded like a tide, and I decided when to read it. Hours later, in the dim cabin of the Long Leg, I let silence be my companion. A seatmate chatted about gelato in Rome, and I offered a polite smile before turning back to my notes. My checklist was simple. Passport stamps, time difference, ground transport options if no one appeared. In the quiet hum, I remembered Harlan's voice. Not dramatic, just practical. Follow the paper. My hand scribbled one sentence into notes. No speeches, only facts. Turbulence tapped the fuselage, and I tightened my grip before releasing it, reminding myself, ain't my first storm. The courage was private, but it was there. At JFK, I stretched my legs, followed signs, and stopped for water. I downloaded a Rome metro map, just in case. Snacks and aspirin went into the side pocket of my purse. I never called Dorian, that boundary held firm. Back on board for the international leg, I dozed in short intervals. Alarms set to Rome's time. The landing thump came sooner than I expected. Families with strollers clogged the aisle, but I kept my rhythm. At passport control, the officer stamped my page with a flat "Buongiorno." I answered simply, "Morning." My bag wheels clicked across tile. The smell of espresso drifting from a kiosk. Then I saw him. A driver holding a placard with my name printed clear. Corliss Hanny. His eyes found mine like he'd been expecting me all along. He stepped forward, close enough to be heard over the crowd. His voice was even deliberate. 6 words. Your real life starts from here. My jaw didn't drop in front of him, but inside I felt the floor tilt. Who sent you? I asked. He only inclined his head toward the waiting sedan. You'll see. The door opened, smooth and quiet, as if rehearsed. I slid into the back seat, pressing record on my phone to log the timestamp. Route signs pointed toward the city. My hand brushed the Rome ticket one last time before tucking it away. That piece of paper had opened a door, and beyond it waited the truth. We turned toward Rome, and I knew something written with my name on it was waiting. The brass plaque glinted in the soft Roman sun. Ginevra Conti, Notaio. I paused at the door, steadying my breath before stepping inside. The foyer smelled of marble polish and faint lavender. A clerk at reception gave me a polite, "Buongiorno," and I answered slowly, "Good morning." My eyes swept the room, red leather-bound codes on a shelf, cameras angled discreetly, exits noted. This was a place that worshipped paper, not noise. I pressed the Rome ticket deeper into my purse. It had done its job. Now it was time to see why Harlan had sent me here. Ginevra Conti met me with the calm authority of someone who carried other people's secrets for a living. Her English was crisp, every vowel precise. She motioned me toward a chair across her oak desk. "Passport, please." I passed it over, watched her eyes flick to a printed index, then back to me with a nod. "We will proceed in 2 parts," she explained. "First, the trust, then a personal deposit." Her voice carried no drama, only cadence. A tray appeared with espresso. I chose water. "No ice," I said, and she smiled faintly as if she understood the habit of older women who travel with care. I signed her visitor log with a fountain pen, the ink flowing without tremor. My posture stayed firm, angled so I could see both door and window. She laid a thick dossier on the desk, tied with ribbon, stamped in red wax. The cover bore both Italian and English. "Springing trust, activation on death of settler." Her manicured finger tapped clauses, voting rights in a Delaware holding, cross-ownership linking American operations to assets here. My eyes landed on one sentence. Majority trustee. Corliss Hanny. Not Dorian, not Isolde. Me. Then came the video. Harlan sat in a simple chair, suit neat, face steady. "Follow the paper. Corliss," he said. "No speeches, only facts." His voice didn't shake. Mine almost did, but I kept my hands flat on the desk. Something inside me unlocked. "A door I'd been pressing against for years," Ginevra asked. "Do you acknowledge understanding?" I answered. "I do." The words carrying the weight of a vow. We worked through each tab. I initialed every page, requested certified copies and a digital scan. She outlined next steps. Agents to notify, a board meeting to call, filings to prepare. I dictated a short list into my phone. Counsel shortlist, PR contact, banking verification. My mother's voice rang in memory. "You don't have to be loud to be in charge." I requested a notarized affidavit for the video's custody. Ginevra's nod told me she respected diligence as much as signatures. Then she brought out a smaller folder. "Your husband left a personal deposit." The word personal sat heavy in the room. We signed a retrieval slip, donned our coats, and followed a clerk down a stone corridor. Outside, the Roman sun had more warmth than Charleston's ever did. I pressed my palm against my purse, bracing my heart. At the vault, a brass box was placed before me. Inside lay a sepia wedding photo, me and Harlan, impossibly young. Joy stamped across our faces. Beneath it, a folded letter. "Corliss, for when the room won't hear you," it began. I read in silence. "I chose you to finish what we built. Let them talk. You'll carry the paper." Tears stung, but I would not let them fall. The past was mine. The future, too. I slid both into a protective sleeve. "Thank you," I said aloud, though it sounded like prayer. Back on the street. I booked a flight home and texted one line to myself. "Board meeting. Call the vote." The Roman light caught the edge of the dossier in my bag, turning it into a shield. By the time Charleston woke, my proof would already be waiting on the table. I unlocked my front door before sunrise, the house silent except for the click of the deadbolt. The air carried that damp Charleston chill that seeps through old wood. I set the kettle on, opened the blinds halfway, and placed the folder from Rome squarely in the center of my dining table. Sticky notes marked the lanes of battle. Banking. Marina. Codicil. Meeting deck. My phone sat upright. Do not disturb switched off. Alarms lined up like sentries. 10 o'clock with the bank, 11:30 with the marina. Afternoon reserved for scanning, I whispered to myself. Paper over noise. As I laid a fresh yellow pad beside my pen, a short text to Dorian. Board meets soon. Be prepared. No warmth. No advice. Just the truth. I slipped on flats. Drama needs costumes. Strategy needs shoes you can move in. By 10, I was on the line with the bank. The representative confirmed the loan numbers, covenants, due dates. Her voice softened as she admitted, "Yes, ma'am. There were 2 late notices and a rate reset. I jotted down every detail, times, names, extensions. I asked for a payment ledger and collateral summary. Email in PDF, not screenshots." Keys clacked on her end, and she promised they'd arrive shortly. I muttered under my breath, "Trust is good, but paperwork is better." Within minutes, the inbox pinged. Official foreclosure notice for the penthouse. Stamped and dated. No rumor, just ink. Almost at once. Another email arrived. This one from the marina. Delinquent payments, insurance pending cancellation. Impound order scheduled. Attached was a photograph. The yacht's ropes hung slack while a tow vessel waited beside it. I printed the pages, punched holes, slipped them into a binder labeled non-performing assets. My voice dropped to a whisper. Drink up, children, tomorrow comes quick. I typed out a one-page summary with bullet points. Lender arrears, legal timeline. The binder's weight steadied me. Facts are ballast. I dialed the marina directly. This is Corliss Hanny, verifying impound scheduling and insurance status. The manager's voice was polite but weary. We've reached out 3 times. Coverage is pending cancellation. I asked for a signed statement with dates and policy numbers. He recognized the tone of someone who wouldn't let go. Yes, ma'am. You'll have it shortly. I pressed further. And a doc photo, time-stamped. He paused, then said, Understood. That file went into a folder marked Proof for Board. Next. I turned my lamp toward the codicil copy. I placed it beside Harlan's older signatures, eyes narrowing at the strokes. His Y-tails once swept confidently. Here, they drooped. Crossbars hesitated, spacing widened. I circled anomalies in pencil, jotting questions. Who witnessed? Where was it signed? Who held custody? My gaze lingered on the name Alton Greaves buried in the references. If he shepherded this, then he would answer under oath. That dog won't hunt, I murmured. Boxing the suspicious date. Everything was scanned to a thumb drive marked Board. Master. I drafted a clean slide deck, first page, trust authority, second, foreclosure documents, third, marina notices, fourth, codicil discrepancies, each with headers, dates, and one unmistakable image. No colors, no fluff, just evidence. Handout packets went into colored folders, tabs aligned to the binder. I booked the conference room, insisted the projector be tested. My checklist was neat. 12 copies, pens, affidavit from Rome tucked at the back. A knock broke the quiet. Dorian entered without waiting, Isolde hovering behind him, phone in hand. Mom, we should align messaging, he said. I answered calmly. We'll align with the truth. Isolde's voice dripped with polish. This isn't good optics. I looked her in the eye. I'm not in the optics business. Dorian reached for the binder. My hand stopped his. If you have documents, bring them tomorrow. Otherwise, bring a pen. They left in a huff. I turned the key in the lock, and the silence returned. That evening, I stacked the packets into my tote, slid the Rome video drive into a side pocket, and powered up the slide deck. The title glowed. Special meeting. Trust activation and asset status. I whispered. By morning, I'll pull the floor out from under them. I arrived early, the fluorescent lights humming low, the walnut table stretching like a battlefield, waiting for soldiers. I tested the HDMI cable twice, mirrored the display, killed all notifications. No surprises would come from the machine. At each seat, I placed packets, tabs in color, trust, bank, marina, codicil. Pens were lined dead center, glasses of water already poured. My chair was at the end nearest the screen, back to the door, so no one could creep behind me. Dorian came in loud, jacket tossed over a chair. Isolde scanned the corners like she was hunting cameras. Alton only checked his watch. Old lawyers always measure power in seconds. I tapped the clock. We'll begin on time. Agenda, facts only. Slide 1 lit the wall. Authority, financials, vessel status, codicil inquiry, next steps. Ground rules, I said. No interruptions during proofs, questions after each section. If you can't back it up on paper, leave it in your pocket. The secretary clicked his pen. Ready to minute. Dorian smirked a joke, but I held his gaze. We'll keep this businesslike, Alton murmured. Understood. Though his pen tapped a nervous beat, I clicked to slide 2. Springing trust, activation on death of settler. The red seal filled the screen. Clauses highlighted. My name printed clear. Certified copies slid across the table. Page numbers called out for the minutes. Section 4. Sub B. Voting control resides with the trustee. Me upon Mr. Creary's death, Dorian barked. Since when? I kept steady. Since Rome, escrow held, notarized, chain of custody intact. Oh, and my voice was flat, not triumphant. This isn't personal, it's procedural. Heads bent to paper, the room shifted. Slide 3, bank PDFs and marina notices. The foreclosure notice glowed in bold, dates stamped. Beside it, a doc photo with the yacht line slack. I read aloud. Arrears, rate reset, impound scheduled. Isolde's voice tried sugar. This is out of context. I pointed to the ledger. Context is on page 2 and 3. Read the entries. Silence swelled. If it walks like a duck, I said evenly. The bank already called it. Murmurs stopped. Oxygen thinned. Slide 4 brought the codicil. Side-by-side signatures filled the screen. I circled the Y-tails, crossbars, pen lifts, hesitations that weren't Harlan's. Counselor Greaves, I said, state for the record the witnessing location and identities. Alton's throat worked. I'll need to review. We are reviewing them. I cut in, bullet by bullet. I asked, who notarized? Where signed? Why the date shifted? That dog won't hunt, I said. A director nodded. Almost despite himself, I advanced to probate receipts, stamped and dated. Then I dimmed the lights. The video rolled. Harlan's face, steady as ever, filled the screen. Follow the paper. The trustee is Corliss. He named the trust title. Used a phrase only he and I shared. The board stiffened. They recognized truth when it spoke. Dorian leapt. Cut that! I didn't raise my voice. Sit, the minutes are running. I froze the frame on the notary seal, zoomed in, and handed out affidavits of chain of custody from Rome. The silence that followed was final, like a verdict read in court. I moved to recognize the trust and my voting authority, I said, and to suspend Mr. Voss's powers pending audit. A director's voice answered. Second. Hands rose. The secretary counted. Motion passed. Isolde hissed. Optics, I answered. We're fixing fundamentals. Optics can wait. Assignments followed like chess moves. CFO to reconcile, legal to prepare filings, PR on hold. We'll get our house in order, I finished. The meeting adjourned. I packed the drive. One director whispered, Well played, Miss Hanny. In the hallway, phones lit up, notifications popping fast. By the elevators, I saw it. A clipped video of me already circulating, captions twisting my words. The internet had put me on trial before I'd even left the building. The boardroom door clicked behind me, and the elevator lobby buzzed with blue phone light. A junior staffer's whisper cut through. Ma'am, they're posting you. My name already danced across feeds. The clip stopped mid-sentence, right before the notary seal. Captioned, Widow seizes company. Off camera. Isolde's voice dripped false sympathy. Think of the employees. Comments rolled fast, greedy, cold. Not her place. I refused a second viewing. Instead, I logged details, account names, timestamps, 10 resharing handles. My mother used to say, Don't chase the barking dog, fix the fence. I texted the secretary, Hold the room, we're moving to media. I called Ed. Spin up the archive page. Read-only access. In the media suite, I demanded raw file hashes, export logs, capture settings. The IT lead pointed out mismatched resolution and iPhone EXIF data. Timestamped 11:09 a.m. That wasn't our master. A familiar name surfaced in the resharing cloud. Malis Rourke, a PR instigator with fingerprints on stunts before. Draft an evidence memo, I told legal. Hash values, custody screenshots, metadata. I listed 3 beats the smear cut. The trust clause, the foreclosure PDFs, the notary seal. 15 minutes. That was the deadline I set. Facts would carry themselves. I built a single landing page. Board proceedings, exhibits, and video. The uploads went live, full video. Affidavits from Rome, bank notices, marina impound emails, timestamp doc photo. I added an index with exact minutes. Trust clause at 0:47, lender PDF at 4:12, seal at 5:26, captioning enabled, transcript attached. Social copy was simple. No speeches, only facts. Our record is public. I asked the secretary to blast it to directors and senior staff. No one would later claim ignorance. We hit publish. The newsroom at Post and Courier replied, "Got it, reviewing." Comments began to flip. "They cut her." She showed the seal. "That's not a seize. That's a trust." A local radio host DM'd, "Is the bank notice real?" I replied with exhibit numbers. One director posted, "I was in the room. The video is accurate." That broke the dam. I captured the first 10 corrections as proof. My voice softened as I whispered, "Sunlight's a disinfectant." By dusk, fallout rolled in. HR emailed. Counsel Greaves placed on leave. The Marina's official page confirmed impound. An influencer called Isolda's Edit, context theft. Sponsors paused her brand deal. The probate clerk confirmed receipt of our affidavits. A judge already calendaring a hearing. I forwarded Dorian one plain note. "Prepare a written statement acknowledging the trust and audits." My binder grew a new folder labeled Fallout, Day 1. The swarm didn't quit. Spam calls spiked. Threats went into the police log. Isolda tweeted prayer hands. Replies drowned her in links to our exhibits. She locked her account. Milas pushed a second clip. Our site traffic tripled. Older viewers wrote thank yous for captions. I issued a 4-line statement. Trust confirmed. Evidence public. Audits underway. Employees first. Local anchors read it verbatim. The word fair flashed in text from strangers I didn't know. I murmured, "When they go loud, you go clear." Close to midnight, my phone buzzed with Dorian's name. I let it ring once before answering. His voice cracked, half slurred, half broken. I thought I deserved it all. "Mom." That word was heavy. I steadied my tone. "You inherited responsibility, not entitlement." He confessed Alton wouldn't answer. Isolda's agent wanted distance. The yacht was being taken. No gloating from me. Only one path forward. If you're ready to be an adult, come to the audit at 9. Sit, listen, and sign only what you can defend. Silence lingered. Then, "I'm sorry," I replied. "Be better. Sorry is a start, not the end." I hung up, logging the time in my notebook. Tomorrow's agenda was printed. Leadership vote, payroll distribution, stabilization plan. My suit, low heels, and spare lenses sat ready. The Rome affidavit lay on top of the dossier like a blessing. At the kitchen window, the Charleston marsh lay dark, the tide steady. It smelled like closure. By morning, the company would have a leader, and my family would face the truth we'd all been running from. I arrived 10 minutes early, the boardroom still smelling of coffee and toner. The projector hummed, already alive, and each seat had a packet labeled Transition, Phase 1. I laid my palm on the stack and breathed steady. No speeches, I reminded myself. Only motions, exhibits, and signatures. When folks my age talk about leadership, we know payroll comes before pride, suppliers before titles, and insurance before vanity. Dorian sat 2 chairs down, quiet for once, eyes fixed on the grain of the table. Isolda's chair sat empty, as did Alton's, both absences telling their own stories. I set the clock on the wall. "We'll finish in 45 minutes, I announced as others filed in. "Let's fix the roof while the sun's shining." The motion came clean. Appoint an interim CEO with proven turnaround skills. Not a family member, under trustee oversight. I passed the dossier hand to hand, no names called aloud, just the credentials. Audited history, credibility with unions, years in maritime operations. A director seconded without hesitation. Hands rose in quiet agreement. The secretary stamped the decision, and the sound of the gavel echoed like a door shutting on old chaos. Applause was small, but it was honest. I turned to Dorian. "You'll serve as advisor to the audit committee. No spending authority." His jaw tightened. I added, "You'll earn back trust the same way you lost it. One decision at a time." We moved through the list like seasoned sailors patching sails in a storm. Outside counsel retained to probe the codicil forgery. Suppliers wired funds to keep contracts alive. A marina settlement plan drafted on the condition of insurance reinstatement. Policy shift. No personal recordings at meetings. Only archived links as the official record. HR confirmed Greaves stayed on leave. Interim counsel already signed in. Communications went out to employees and press. 2 paragraphs. Facts only. No adjectives. My closing line carried across the table. The company now answers to paper, not rumor. In a side room afterward, Dorian followed me in. "I'll do the audit work," he said, voice low. I met his eyes. "Do it on paper and on time." He hesitated. "Can we?" I lifted my hand gently. "Start with the work. Family is earned back, same as trust." He nodded. Eyes rimmed red. I neither scolded nor embraced. "Don't talk it to death," I said softly. "Walk it." I left him with a checklist and a pen. That was mercy enough for now. By noon, a sponsor statement hit my phone. Isolde's partnership paused pending review. HR confirmed her badge was returned, and ID blocked her device. I simply forwarded the note to records. "Play silly games, win silly prizes," I murmured. I slid the paper into a folder labeled Fallout, Day 2, and shut it with a click. No gloating. The work was punishment enough. That evening, home felt steadier. I brewed chamomile, laid out my travel plan, and tucked the old vault photo and letter into my carry-on. Ephraim Dodd's voice filled the room when I answered his call. "You did what needed doing," he said. I answered. "We did it right." His laugh creaked warm, like pews on Sunday morning. I packed flat shoes, folded a light scarf, and wrote one line in my notebook. No speeches, only facts. And a little mercy. Sleep came like a paid bill. The next afternoon, Rome's light poured across the terrace in Parioli. I placed the wedding photo on the table. The letter under my palm. The notary's clerk confirmed filings were complete. I texted the board secretary one word, stabilized. His reply came quick. "Payroll confirmed." I whispered to Harlan. I followed the paper. The hum of the city answered like a hymn. I didn't cry. I let the sunlight do the speaking. Sometimes the quiet win is the loudest. I slipped the photo into my bag, closed the dossier, and rose. The envelope that once felt like an insult now felt like a compass. When harvest season comes, I'll bring the board a bottle and a ledger. Both will tell the same truth.